Lili by Martin Sanders Whiteley. Chapter 11. Carmilla Karnstein. It was then that Carmilla took notice of the rest of us. She merely raised an eyebrow. She didn't seem alarmed at all. "Who are you?" she asked in a sleepy, disinterested tone. It was a far cry from the furious, "Leave this place," of my dream that I had expected. "My name is Lili," I replied, hesitating awkwardly. Everything was happening so fast. "This is Lucy Weston," I began, gesturing to each of my friends as I said their name. "Mina Harker, Cassandra..." I stopped. Cassie hadn't told me her last name. "Call me Cassie," she chirped brightly, seemingly without a care in the world. "And Clarissa," I finished. I looked over at Clarissa. She was avoiding eye contact with everyone else. She was shaking. I didn't feel up to talking to her, even to ask her last name. A trace of a smile formed on Carmilla's lips. I could tell that she enjoyed my discomfort. "I am Countess Mircalla Karnstein," she announced, holding herself in a regal pose, yet still managing to look extremely bored, as if she might fall asleep at any moment. "Laura knows me as Carmilla, but I've gone by many names. It's all the same to me." She looked at the desolate stonework around us as if she were surveying her kingdom. I guessed that this might have been part of her kingdom, or queendom, rather, at some point. She placed her hands on her hips, seemingly satisfied. "Now go away," Mircalla said dismissively. "All of you." My vision began to turn red again, but an even deeper, bloodier red than before. My eyes felt like they were burning. I could feel a scream rising in my throat. I ran at Mircalla, determined to tear her apart with my bare hands. She knocked me down as if she were swatting a fly. She may have even yawned. I hit the cold stone courtyard, but I was barely aware of the pain. I let out a scream like no human or animal ever heard. It was simultaneously ear-piercingly high and gut-wrenchingly low. It didn't sound like it was my voice, but I knew it was. I ran at Carmilla again, and she knocked me down again. I became aware that the scream was not coming from my mouth, but erupting in an unceasing mental shriek at Carmilla. As I continued my useless assault, the constant scream attempted to take the form of words, but I was too scatterbrained. Instead, an amorphous stream of anger and accusation continued to flow hatefully at Carmilla. I was knocked down a final time. I could feel a burning liquid running from my eyes, and I wondered if it was tears or blood. Then remembered that they were one and the same for our kind. Carmilla walked towards me and stooped beside me, looking directly into my eyes. Once again, I expected her to speak in the stifling mental voice I had heard in the dream, but she didn't. Instead, she spoke to me in her physical voice, calmly, but with deadly accuracy, clinical and cold. "You think you have been through hell, but you have not." Her voice was simultaneously cold and burning with emotions I knew I could never possibly understand. "I have spent an eternity looking for a companion. I was given my bloodlust by some anonymous shadow who grabbed me in the dark and drained my life. All I have ever wanted is someone to join me in the afterlife. Someone to spend eternity with. Each one died at the hands of their loved ones, their mothers and fathers turning against them because they had changed. In Laura's case, I really thought we had a chance. Then her family killed me instead of her. I don't even know how long I've been dead. You will not come between me and Laura." Finishing her speech, Carmilla turned away from me, wrapping one arm around Laura. Laura's eyes were startlingly wide. She was shaken to the point of speechlessness by our respective displays of emotion over her. I didn't blame her. I only blamed myself. I turned away from Carmilla and Laura, away from my friends who were waiting for me. "Don't listen to her," they seemed to be saying, but it was drowned out by the throbbing, watery guilt collecting in my brain. I ran at unprecedented lightning speed back to the inn, where I practically fell into my coffin, wishing that I would never wake again, that I would truly die. One should be careful what they wish for. Chapter 12. Rebirth. The last thing I remembered was pure agony, an unintelligible explosion of crimson. Then, nothing. Then I felt another pain that was almost as agonizing as the pain that preceded it, but somehow a relief. Then came a surge of power, an amazing feeling of freshness. I felt myself rise from the coffin. When I was finally upright, I felt like the Queen of Darkness, the ultimate nemesis, one who could bring about the apocalypse by blinking. "Don't feel too proud of yourself," said Carmilla, who was one to talk. She stood next to me with a bloody wooden stake in her hand. "I thought you never wanted to see me again," I said, my ego gradually deflating as I stepped out of the coffin. "I didn't," Carmilla admitted, dropping the stake on the ground. "I still don't want to see you. But after you ran away to sulk, we were attacked by hunters of the immortals." "What?" "Vampire hunters. You may not have been as discreet as you thought when praying," she explained as we ascended the steps out of the basement. "I wasn't expecting the attack. When we reached the main room of the tavern, I had to avert my eyes. There was a mangled body sitting on the floor. Every joint was bent in the wrong direction. Even the joints of the fingers on his hand and the toes on his feet, which had been stripped of their shoes, had been expertly bent backwards. His eyes were wide in what was once shock, but now they were vacant. What happened to him? I asked as calmly as I could. Despite not having eaten anything in God knows how long, I could tell that my body was trying to throw up. He was blocking the door. Carmilla waved her hand dismissively as we walked towards the door of the inn. Besides, he reminds me of someone who slaughtered one of my loves in the past. Slaughtered? I asked. It was a very specific choice of words. Oh, yes. Carmilla raised her voice and her angular eyebrows for emphasis. He didn't just stake her like those imbeciles did to you. He hacked my love to pieces. So I one-upped him. How is that one-upping him? I asked, wondering if Carmilla realized that the man in her way and the butcher who murdered her love probably weren't the same person. We were now outside, walking through the woods that led to the castle, although I barely noticed. The way you killed him seems just as painful as being hacked to pieces. Oh, he isn't dead, Carmilla crooned in a sickly sweet voice, a sadistic smile creeping over her face. But when he wakes up, he'll wish he was. I thought about what the man crumpled on the floor of the inn must feel like, and involuntarily shuddered as we approached the door of the castle.